Okay, I'm going to make an impromptu video here on dealing with polyethylene tubing. I'm putting in a water line to a small house, and this is 1-inch diameter polyethylene tubing from Lowe's. It's a thin wall. This is dimensional ratio of 19.5. The other stuff I'd used out here before was more like a DR11. This stuff's pretty thin, and it's not pleasant to deal with. It likes to hold its curves. It comes on in a rolled form. It likes to hold that roll. So you'll look down here on the ground. You'll see there's a piece sticking under the fence there. I just unrolled both of these yesterday. The temperature was about 50 something degrees. It's currently 28 degrees. It'll head up to maybe 50 degrees today. But notice how that one isn't just curling back up. And that's because what I did is I tied it up to the fence, and it won't show very well. But basically this is a basket type loop that I've put over the tubing here to allow me with paracord then to tie it off to this fence. And I just left it pulled out and stretched out last night. Something like an icicle hitch. I've forgotten there's also a rat tail stopper. I just tied a loop and wove it over it. So I'm going to, in a few moments, I'll stop and I will show how that is put on. And then I just tied it along the fence. It's a 100-foot stretch. It's tied off this exact same way on the other end. And you can see that once I release tension, it still isn't going back into that god-awful coil like it was before. So I'll stop here and I'll pick up in a few moments. This is a section that I had stretched out overnight, and I've moved it over to a different fence line closer to where I'll be assembling it for the next run. Just an example of how well that basket style weave of a loop on there holds that slick tube. This is a 100-foot section of this, and it won't show up well, but it doesn't actually touch the ground. It gets close in the middle. It's probably within 5 or 6 inches of touching the ground, but at each end of throughout the whole run, it's supported off the ground, which is a fair amount of tension on it, and yet the basket style icicle hitch type weave bites really well and holds, thank God. This is just 550 paracord. Anyway, it's just amazing to be able to do this. It works really well. You also see I put the final knot, the termination of the loop that's woven onto here, on the inside of where it's trying to bend. This tubing is trying to bend this way, and I want to take that last little bit of bend and try to work that out by holding it here for a little while. The sun is coming down on it. Unfortunately, it's still probably just barely above freezing at this point, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll let it sit in the sun for a little bit and hopefully relax some of this tension here. I'm gonna go get another piece of cordage and do the same thing on this one, just trying to get that last little bit of bend out of it, and then I'll be able to join this together. And hopefully what I'll do is be able to get this connected and get water in it before I actually start to cover it back over with dirt. And the water should hopefully take the last of the flex and the bends out and relax this stuff and allow it to the dirt to settle in on it while it's held straight. I don't know if it'll really make any difference or not, but that's the intent. We'll see if I get that done. The other stuff though, this for sure works. This is pretty impressive, I think. Okay, so there's 3 welded generators running off about 100 feet to my left here. I'm having a shop built, so I apologize for the noise. So I'll try to speak up, hopefully I can get this. What I've done is I've just tied a loop, the bow line, some people pronounce it bowline. Made it quite a large loop. That's going to be about 14 inches overall length right there. And I'll try to show you how I basket this onto the tubing to be able to grip it. Pull that off to the side. Here's the tubing I've moved down from where it was tied up to the fence a short while ago. Okay, so we're going to take the loop, put the loop over, and grab this. We're going to turn it, and we're just going to pull that back over. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing. So I turned it to the left. I'll do it again. I would try to alternate it, which way I turn it. A little bit difficult trying to do this one-handed. Okay, flip that. I'm going to flip that again. Back down over it. If I can get one more, looks like I can get one more, no problem. Now I'm just going to slide this and dress this down the tube a little bit, like so. Now when I pull on it, like I said, some places I've seen it called an icicle hitch, or it's similar to a rat tail stopper. There's a website I really like called animatedknots.com. Lots of good information on tying knots and working with cordage. Anyway, there. Now as I pull this, if I can get it to bite down, which is being a little difficult, especially doing it one-handed, what'll happen is it will cinch up. And that's how I had it before. And as I pull it more and more, there, finally it's starting to bite. As it releases and loses the slop from having put it on there in such a simple way. And eventually this will bite down and not work with me at all for the video, damn it. There, and I can pull it like that, and I should be able to pull it directly off the end, but that gives me the ability to pull. And that's how it was tied up earlier, okay? If I had both hands to work with it, I could actually get that to bite down as I did before. Once you've tied that off and it's been left out to straighten the line out for a while, overnight, a day, depending upon temperature and conditions, to release it, doesn't really matter how much tension you've put on it. You can just simply come along like this and it will slide right off. So there you go. So I'm going to move up the line here. I've got a kink in the line. I'm going to repair that kink, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Okay, so here's a kink that's formed in the line, and this is one of the problems with dealing with this stuff. When it was on the roll, it had gotten some kind of a kink. So when I pulled it out straight, instead of taking the curve out, it actually just went ahead and kinked. There's no way to repair that I'm aware of. There's no way that I'm ever going to straighten it out and then trust that it's not going to do that once I start to throw dirt back in the hole. I just don't want to have to keep track of it and worry about after I'm done with almost a 400-foot run that, oh, I don't get water flow because there's a kink somewhere and I have to dig it all back up. I'm not doing that. So what I'm going to do is replace that with a union here. I don't want to lose, I don't know, 30 feet worth of tubing. So I'm going to put a union in there like that. So I'll show you how we'll do that. Okay, I've gotten the label off of the union, and I'm going to use a pair of tubing cutters. You can do this with a box knife and cut around it fairly easily, but I can't do it one-handed for the video, and this is just faster and easier, and I have it. So hook that underneath somewhere where it looks like the wall is still straight. We don't want to get into this tapered down section here. Okay, so we're going to just, and that's going to snap back some, of course. It's still under tension, and there it goes. We're going to do the same thing over here on the other side. And now I've got nice, pretty square cuts. Now the idea is that this is supposed to slip just in here, and if you'll notice that these newer fittings that I've been buying, they're threaded at the beginning. Notice that these were slanted, and then we have straight ones here, and the idea is you're going to stick this in, I guess, and you're going to grab these ears and you're going to twist this sucker in like a screw. I wish you the very, very best of luck with that. This stuff is pretty stiff, especially on a cold morning like this. I tried on a warmer day, day before yesterday when I first put some of this in the ground, maybe 2 days before that, I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't screw in real well, even when it's warmed up. So I'm going to, I can kind of almost get it to start, but I'll sit here and I'll fart around with this for way too long. Screw that. So heat is your friend. If I had a heat gun, and I have two, why is that so blurry? Whatever. Anyway, I'm not sure why that's not focusing well. There it goes. I have a heat gun. I have two of them. I don't know where they are, and I don't have electricity right here where I'm working. So what I do have is a propane torch, and this works exceedingly well, but you need to be careful at the heat input. If you get it too soft, if you're not careful as you handle it, it will kink because it's so soft. It'll kink as you're trying to hold it. It's trying to curve and go this way, as you can see, as it's pulling away from where I'm holding it down with my knee. If I try to pull it that way with that fitting in it, I can kink it right at the end of the fitting if it's too soft. What'll happen is, this is a nice square cut, fairly square anyway, square enough, if it would go ahead and focus for me. What'll happen is, as I heat this, it'll start to glisten, and it'll start to round this off, and that means I've gotten too much heat into it. Those 90-degree corners on the outside and the inside will begin to round off, and that's a bad sign. So I'm going to, I wish I was using my camera instead of my phone. So I'm going to heat this up, and then I'll be able to slip that directly in very, very easily. And again, it's a matter of experience knowing how much to heat it up, so you'll have to learn that on your own. Sorry. I'm using pinch clamps on this instead of the screw clamps. I bought these years ago. As you can see, it's a ratty looking bag. I've already done several joints on this tubing elsewhere, and it's working really, really well. They're like PEX clamps, but they're specifically labeled for, I doubt it'll focus. It's not working very well for me this morning. for use with 1-inch poly pipe only. So it looks like a PEX clamp, but it's actually for a poly pipe. And then I'm using a set of PEX clamps, tools. So give me a second, I'll get this into position. Obviously, don't forget, and I say this not because I think you're an idiot, because I make mistakes myself, don't forget to put this on first. Don't put the fitting in there and then have to take it back out. That'll suck. So let me get the torch on that and warm that up. Now, unfortunately here, I overheated it, just like I was saying a moment ago not to do, and I did it. So you may be able to tell that clamp is sinking down into that plastic a little bit more than what I would like. I don't have the tool really tightened on it yet. It hasn't even started to ratchet, and it's already squishing it down. So that will help it to form to the barb very well. What'll happen, though, I'm afraid, is it may cause a thin point right here at the edge of the clamp as it squishes out that plastic. And again, once this is buried, I don't have to come back and mess with it again. So I'm going to let it sit here and think about what it's done for a little bit and cool off. Wow, that's still, yeah, I overdid it. That's not fun to touch. That's hot. So I'll let that cool down for a little bit until I can comfortably handle it, and then I'll go ahead and crimp that down. Like I said, I just don't want to squish the plastic out so much and have it be thin and have something happen when it goes in the hole. The dirt starts to settle in on it and cause it to separate. When I did some brass fittings on a line 7 or 8 years ago, I just pulled that line out in part about a month and a half ago, and when I separated it with a backhoe trying to rip some of the stuff out, instead of it actually separated the poly line at the end of the clamps and the brass barb. I mean, it holds remarkably well the way I've done it in the past, and I just don't want to overly thin this out by crimping it while it's still hot. Like I said, this is not fun to touch. That's ow. So I'll let that sit for a little bit. Okay, so I've gotten that one crimped on. Notice I've moved the band back a little bit from the flange where the ears are for tightening, so it hopefully lands right on top of those two circumferential rings instead of the threaded inclined plane rings. This area right here. Also, again, this is supposed to thread in there, right? You're supposed to be able to twist that and put it in there, except that they're both right-hand threads. So if I actually start turning this one to tighten it into the piece of pipe that's going to go on this end, it's going to try to back out of this one. And now that crimp ring is on there to keep that from backing out, I don't know how easily that's going to rotate. So screw that nonsense. We're just going to warm this up and we'll just slip it right on. And I've already got my ring in place. Okay, and there it is. Now it's on. This one I did not overheat. So this one is, I mean, I just put that on moments ago. I can keep my hand on it comfortably. So I'm going to try to keep this kind of held back here in a nice straight line. It's trying to, as you can see, it's trying to bounce back that way. I'm going to kind of hold that for a little bit and let that cool off to maintain the form, because now the greatest risk of kink is forming right here where it's been warmed and softened a little bit. If there's enough spring back in the tubing, it'll try to take this coupler that direction and wind up kinking here. This one's cooled off enough now. It's been several minutes since that was heated up, so that shouldn't be a problem. But like I said, again, this is where you want to watch for kinks, so don't overheat it, and if it is overheated, careful on crimping it and careful on letting it go and forming a new kink right there where you get to cut this off and do this again. The nice thing about these pinch clamps, these do not have the breakaway tab like some of the regular PEX clamps of this style, but you can take a pair of dikes or fence wire cutters and you can cut that right there, and then just take it off and reuse everything except for obviously the clamp itself. So I'm going to let this cool and sit for a little bit, and then drag it closer to the trench and get ready to join this to the next 100-foot section.